Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Round 11 podcast. I'm your host, Billy Spots, joined again by Michael Stray and a new guest coming over from the Intentionally Speaking podcast. I'll let you introduce
everybody. I'm Drew, a.k.a. Sleepy Sandman. That's going to be pretty much my gamer tag, I guess, from now until I die for all new games coming. I'm a big League player. I've played COD a little bit when I was younger with my cousins. Really liked it then. Haven't played so much now, but being part of the UO program and that kind of stuff and just immersing myself even deeper into the wonderful world that is esports, I've had a growing interest in the CDL. So I am here filling in, I guess, because no one else wanted to volunteer, and I'm excited to have a lovely conversation with Michael and Billy today.
All right. So last week we covered the Atlanta FaZe homestand, which was pretty fun, kind of weird at times, but it's pretty good overall. This weekend we have the Los Angeles homestand, which is shaping up to probably be one of the more interesting ones, just in terms of like going into it, various rosters have changed, as well as like there's no Chicago, so yeah. We do have a FaZe is still there, so there's like still probably a really heavy favorite, but like, you know, it was the first time Chicago isn't attending, so it's gonna be interesting to see the fan interaction. It's interesting to see the social media response, because Chicago
and just the numbers. I mean, the viewing numbers of the stream, if it's a down week, it's going to be kind of a bummer that Chicago isn't playing, and it just happens to be a bad week for stream viewership.
It's going to be kind of damning for...
It's also interesting because usually we've had a 1 week break between homestands. We've had that again going into this one, but after this homestand, there's going to be 2 off weeks before we get to CDL Dallas. So we've got this chance for FaZe to pick up its second title in 3 homestands out of the first, 3 tournament-style ones that we've had. And after that, it's going to be a while for teams to get back to the drawing board and mess around with new rosters before we see some more teams in action all the way late in March. So I'm definitely going to miss Call of Duty for a couple weeks, especially during spring break. I mean, I'm going to want to watch during spring break.
You got the Pac-12 tournament to look forward to.
Yeah.
There you go. There's going to be a lot of college basketball. That's...
True.
This is going to sound terrible. I never cared about college basketball before coming out here. I never followed it, like, in any capacity outside of March Madness.
See, college basketball is, like, the one form of basketball I've generally cared about for the most part. Like, I've had periods in my life where I've cared about the NBA for certain reasons and that kind of stuff. But it's just, I don't know, there's just something exciting about it, in terms of the game format and how it works out and how competitive it is. I remember... I think my sophomore or junior year of high school, I was on the track team, and we had on the chalkboard in the locker room kept a March Madness table like the entire season it was going on. That was really exciting to just fill out at the end of the season. So I don't know, it is definitely exciting. I think Ducks play actually today.
Yeah, they play tonight.
Yeah, tonight. I have a friend that's going to the game, so we'll see how March shakes out.
The men's team has actually got 2 more home games left in the regular season.
And
they're undefeated at home. If they win tonight and I think on Saturday night at 8 p.m., they end up going undefeated at home, along with the women's basketball team that went undefeated at home and the football team which went undefeated at home, which is just insane.
It's a great year for the Ducks.
To be living as an Oregon fan in this year where as football...
Maybe it's because I transferred. Maybe it's because I came here.
Yeah, it's Drew's the good luck charm, which means Seattle Surge, if... Drew said by default he'd be a Seattle Surge fan. He might be the good luck charm this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see. When I tend to watch things, they tend to go south. So I just try to be a passive supporter and give everything I can, but not actually watch the game, because that's when everything goes to kind of crap. So
yeah, I used to be that way for League. Like, I couldn't watch C9 games because they'd lose, and I got like it was bad. Like, there was a point where like if I turned into a C9 game and they lost, I'd like wouldn't touch it for a week.
I'm a big soccer fan, big Liverpool fan for Premier League. I haven't watched I didn't watch a single game all year until their loss against Watford.
Are you kidding me?
And they were undefeated until then. And then the one game I tuned in, because I'm like, you know what? I can watch one. They end their winning streak, lose to Watford, and they haven't won a game since. So I am never watching another Liverpool game again. I will continue to be a Liverpool supporter until I die, and hopefully they can take the title this season. But I just know that something happens when I put my eyes to the screen that is not good for any team I enjoy.
So we know who's going to be watching this weekend and
who. Man, Los Angeles is just going to be a really fun event. I think it's probably the one that's had the most questions going into it. At least from we were talking about it kind of ad nauseum the first podcast and last week about the LA team is making roster changes. The Gorillas actually announced their roster change. It was today, right?
Yeah, today. It was
yeah.
a big move.
They're benching Aches, Layfield, and Saints, and they're bringing in Blast, Spart, and Vivid.
Yeah.
Spart and Vivid, I knew so little about before 2 hours ago. Like, when I heard they came on, like, it would effectively be like, you know how Tactical came in for Double Lift?
Yeah.
It's like if I got brought in for, like, Core JJ in terms of, like, who is this guy?
Oh, okay.
That's not as actually a really terrible comparison. But
I mean, to be valid, that's what it felt like with Tactical going in for Double Lift. Like, I didn't know what Tactical was, but
yeah,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's this, like, AM player who I guess was making a lot of waves in, like, the amateur scenes, amateur circuits and stuff, but, seeing all these guys finally get a chance is really exciting for us because, like, COD for so long has almost felt like a good boys club or like an old boys club, that kind of thing. So
we talked for a while about how in previous episodes about how there's just teams have all these open roster spots. They chose not to fill out their rosters, and maybe it's because they wanted to wait and see who the best amateur players are before they start reaching out and plucking what they think are the best players not in the league, and then using that as reinforcements for their teams. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the good teams. They're fine with their rosters. They like it. The teams at the bottom, like LA, I mean, you could make an argument last week that they were the worst team in the CDL, and they drop. I mean, they don't drop, but they bench 3 players. I mean, they totally flip their roster around, and they've got 3 guys that just have performed well in the amateur scene this year, and they're saying, all right, we got 5. We got these 3 young guys coming in, and we're just going to go and see what happens and really take a swing at it. And it's going to be weird, too, especially for the homestand. I mean, these fans, like, up until yesterday are coming to see Aches, and they're coming to see these Saints and these guys, and now they're showing up, and Aches is, like, still part of the team, but they're just watching other dudes. It's
overall, like, really interesting to me, actually, because just in general for esports, I think a lot of the problems with various games, where NA doesn't find success, international, and this is all just U.S., right, for CDL?
For the most part, like, historically,
US and UK.
Yeah,
okay,
US,
cool.
UK,
Yeah,
and
makes
then
sense. Okay.
you have Australian players a lot, and then in the past we've had, like, French teams, but it's been, like, NA.
Which makes sense. It's just because CSGO is very tournament-based, so you get a lot of regional teams and that kind of thing, where until recently, NA didn't have success until 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2018 with the Boston Major.
C9. Yeah, so I think that just from hearing what you guys talking about it is very smart in terms of fostering talent, model and way to go about it, where in other games where there is that whole old boys club mentality kind of thing, a lot of talent and, like, drive to find people on the circuit is just lost because, like, what's the point, So that, I guess, as a new fan and interest is just exciting for me to hear.
I mean, it's exciting for us because, like, I don't know who Spart, or is it Spart or Sprat? Spart. I don't know who Spart is. Like, it's gonna be one of those things where I'm almost intrigued more by seeing this guy who I've never heard of before find success, rather than I am like, I want to see how this team that I know like how they perform. So I don't know. It's gonna be a fun tournament, and this is probably the one I'm excited the most for because it's one that I feel has so much up in the air outside of, like, the main, like, favorites. So
Chris Cervantes is Spart. Got first place at the Atlanta Open, which is just the most recent event. He was on the best AM team there. So
yeah, he was on Atlanta Academy.
Yeah, so he was on that team and one of the best AMs. So there he goes. And I believe Sibilance, also on that team, has gotten picked up by a CDL team. Let's find out. Maybe not yet. No, he's still in the academy roster. I think that's the next best player that a lot of guys are saying needs to be on a team, which is Sibilance. And all these names kind of thrown around as just these guys that have been really going off in the amateur scene that everyone's eagerly awaiting to see what they do when they face up against pros. And it's going to be cool to watch. Spart specifically, I know Vivid has a little bit of experience.
Yeah, Vivid's been around a little bit longer.
Yeah,
he's been around since WO2.
Blast has also had a little bit of experience at the league level, even though they're not veteran players, but they've had experience playing on that biggest stage. And Spart, brand new, so it's going to be fun to watch. And whether this rejuvenates the LA Gorillas, because they got a tough schedule ahead, and it's none of these tournaments are easy. You gotta beat some really good teams, and it's so easy to just be off your game and go 0-2, and then you played your 2 series, and that's your whole homestand down the drain.
Yeah. On top of that, the only other team that really made a change was Seattle, but this is kind of a longer standing change. Seattle was weird because Seattle was like a team of like really old guys in terms of like veteran talent.
The oldest team, yeah.
Yeah. So, oh man, I'm like forgetting the roster now. Okay, so they had Karma, who is like considered the GOAT of Call of Duty. 3 world titles. Octane, who's been really good for 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
I still consider him a young guy for some reason. Slack. I'm surprised Slack stuck around. I thought Slack was going to be the guy they took out because I feel like Slack has always been the underperformer on the roster, but he's also always been on pretty successful teams. So at the same time,
you
it's
talk about old boys club. Not that it really applies too much here, but he's just a guy that dudes like to play with. It seems like nobody, even when he's underperforming statistically, nobody wants to cut him off a team. Everyone wants to make excuses to keep him on a team and make roster changes elsewhere. Whatever
Sometimes
he brings
just
to the
need
table.
that morale role.
Whatever else
exactly.
he brings to the table, intellect-wise, team hype-wise, it seems like people like playing with him, and he's been on a lot of successful teams, so it's not like he's a total dud.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely possible that was the right move for Seattle, which they added Pander. I'm going to let you finish going through that roster.
Pander's kind of interesting because Pander has been around, I think, primarily... Actually, no. So he's technically been on rosters since as far back as Black Ops 3. But, like, he didn't really find, prominence until 2018. He was on E6 for a bit, and then he was on Era, and then he was on Ghost, and Pit, and then Midnight, which had, 18 different rosters in the 2-month span during Black Ops 4. But he definitely seems to have, carved out a space in the scene that people know about him. And so I think it's really interesting that this team of older guys or more established veterans were like, let's take this guy who is maybe not been the most prominent player in the scene, but has definitely I'm intrigued. I can't think of a comparable scenario that's happened in the past in terms of COD or really any other esport to this guy. There's probably a couple, 2015 C9 bringing in Freakazoid. If you guys followed CS back then, I don't know if you guys did, but they bring in Freakazoid, this guy, everyone was like, oh, he's decent, but who knows who he is? And then he came in, and then they went on this crazy run, and then he fell off. Maybe that happens with Pander, who knows?
Yeah, so. With Pander, it is an interesting choice because you look for someone to add to a team, and you saw the Gorillas, and you'll see a lot of teams go for that fresh 18-year-old that's just brand new to the league, has everything to prove, and has just got crazy stats in amateur play. Pander's not that guy. Pander's a guy who's 22 years old. He's played years and years of games. He's been through the cycle. He's been on so many different rosters, and he's more of a teammate guy, more of a guy that you can trust. You know what you're getting out of him. I've never had there's never been moments where Pander's the best player on a team or carrying a team. He's just a guy that's a solid dude on a roster, and so it's a conscious choice by Seattle to say that whatever we think we need to fix for success, it's not going to need some 18-year-old coming in and doing amazing. We just need a guy that picks up the slack a little bit compared to what they lost with Enable, which Enable, we knew he got dropped. Well, yes, I keep saying dropped because it's such a Call of Duty thing that if you're not on the starting roster, you're not on the team. But for now, he's on the bench, and he's going to try to get traded somewhere else. But he got moved out of the lineup, and he was underperforming a lot. He's a guy that a lot of other teams are at least going to be interested in adding to their squad. Pander is somebody that Seattle, I think, is role-wise, it's a bit of a mix. It's a bit of a change because I think Pander's more of an AR.
I think they have a lot of flex players, and then pretty much Octane is their main AR. No, I guess Apathy's typically a main sub. So you have a main sub, main AR, and then 3 flexes. So
yeah, they're not trying to. My point is, they're not trying to shake up the roster per se. They're not really in that bad of a place where they're like, "Oh, we're terrible. We need to change this whole team and get a bunch of 18-year-olds in here."
Yeah,
they're making one very strategic choice. I think they believe in that choice. I think they're going to give it a little bit more time to flesh out. Even if Seattle goes 0-2 this weekend, I think they stick with that roster and say, "No, we're not going to freak out yet. We're going to give them the whole next 3 weeks to get better."
Maybe we get another drunk Karma appearance on the desk. Yeah. That was funny. If you want to he came on during the London event. He comes up to the desk because I guess they close the open bar, and he just goes, they're like, "Karma, what are your thoughts on the weekend?" And he goes, "Our respawns are terrible, or no, our respawns are a coin flip. Our S&D is god awful." And then he's just so clearly trash the entire time. It's something that you don't see in League, and it kind of makes me sad. I wish there was more like kind of funny, humorous, like real moments with the pros.
I think that kind of has to do to the fan/player base, just age differential, I guess.
Yeah.
Where when you get to the pro level and I guess like pro scene, a lot of the fan base for COD, at least to my understanding, is relatively older in comparison to League.
Probably.
Even though League is slowly climbing and reaching that area, right? Because we have Bud Light sponsoring the LCS and all that kind of stuff. So
what I found out about
definitely probably happen, but I don't see it happening for a little while.
What I found kind of interesting was you can't actually advertise alcoholic beverages on your broadcast unless over.
It's a percentage of your viewership has to be within the age legally.
Yeah. It actually has to do with like the age under. I think it's like 28 point something. It's some weird arbitrary number, but like 28% of your viewership has to be under or has to be no more than like 28% of your viewership can be under the age of the legal drinking age, which is bizarre and hilarious. But anyway,
It's also weird for those streams itself because it's a nightmare to try and prove that X amount of our
how do you prove your demographics?
20,000 stream viewers is above this age. It's like, what do you run a poll?
Yeah. So Gorillas and Seattle are gonna be kind of interesting because I feel like Gorillas, if you are gonna win a game off the bat, doing it against the team that has the worst record in the league is probably your best way of doing it. Optic Gaming LA is definitely not good right now. We've talked about it like ad nauseum. As I was saying,
they're gonna be trash until they're not trash at some point. Is kind of what we're all expecting from them.
It's a slasher team. That's just what happens with them.
They've got a disgustingly good roster, and
Dashy's moving to MP5.
They're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Sub Dashy.
Yeah, sub Dashy.
Yeah, and that's going to be a really compelling matchup also because now you've got this old established roster with its fan base, and I don't know how many Optic LA fans there really will be there, but there's going to be more than Gorillas fans, I'm pretty sure.
I'd put good money on it, honestly. I think Immortals, for all their flaws as an organization, have always done a really good job of fostering a fan base.
Yeah, they know
or the IGC, I guess.
They know how to kind of promote their players and make their whole like team roster be its own brand, and but my point was that it's this team that's all these players with brands and all these recognizable names versus five guys that are just young and hungry and really brand new, playing with each other and no expectations whatsoever.
Yeah.
The expectation is fully on Optic LA to win this, even though they've been so bad.
I always feel like
just
they're
another level of humiliation if they lose to the LA Gorillas at their homestand to start off like that. We might need to start calling for someone to retire if they get a rough one against LA Gorillas, especially if it gets ugly in the losers bracket too. And for Optic, I mean, for both LA and Optic, Optic LA and freaking Gorillas, this first matchup is everything for them. You need to come out the gates hot because whoever you play in the losers bracket is probably a tougher opponent. Those other two teams are both really good. So if you start off 0-1, you need to fix it fast because by the eye test, you're now playing a team that's even better in your next game, and falling to just 0-2 is. If you looked at this whole field and you said what team's the most likely of them all to go 0-2 this weekend, it's the loser of that Gorillas Optic LA game for sure. So all eyes on that game to start. So many storylines with the LA stuff. Yeah, I think they're going to try to save it for like a prime time.
Yeah, it's the last game of the day.
Last game of the first day, or not
3
the
p.m.
last
on a
game
Saturday.
Of the Saturday, because they play more after that. But kind of in the middle of the Saturday. I'll make sure I tune in.
It's gonna. I still wish they had Friday matches. That's just me. But in general,
what time do they generally start? Like on the weekends.
Now it's
well, they're all like different time zones so far.
That's true. That makes sense.
You have like a London event starting at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is 10 a.m. start. Yeah, 10 a.m. starts what they usually do for like local events. And it kind of stretches until like 6, 7, 8 p.m. Depending on how long the matches are.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
They play a lot. And then Sunday is the same start with like a 5 p.m. wrap up.
Yeah, 5 p.m. is usually when they do the final. So.
Interesting though. It seems like they're starting at 2 p.m. Yeah, they're starting at 2 p.m.
Oh no, you have the.
Oh, they started 11 for the. They still have those two. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So looking at the other matchup in Group A.
Rocker
Seattle.
Rocker, I feel, are favored. I feel like Rocker is favored to come out first in this group, but. Barring something surprising coming out of those roster changes, I can't see Seattle or Gorillas or even Optic being able to top them. But last weekend, were we expecting Rocker to take FaZe to Game 5? So
yeah. Now that I step back and look at it, I mean, honestly, Rocker got a pretty blessed group.
Oh yeah, no. Rocker got lucky.
They should, if they're as good as they say they are, they should totally come out and get the 2-0, or at the very least get out in the top 2 of this group.
Mm-hmm.
It would be bananas if they didn't, honestly, because it would require not just one, but 2 of those other teams that have been bad in the last so far this season to turn it around and to be genuinely good all of a sudden this weekend. And I totally expect one of them to look like that. But for 2 of these 3 teams to stop sucking and then all of a sudden upset Minnesota would be pretty surprising to me. So
Yeah.
Minnesota got probably the easiest group they'll see all year, and they're expected to roll through. But with that being said, it's not like they're heavily favored over Seattle. I mean, Seattle's a really good team, and they that roster change might be huge for them. We know a lot of times you make one little tinker with your lineup and you just hit another level, and it wouldn't be crazy for that just to go down to a Game 5 and be a coin toss as well. But Minnesota's pretty strong. They've got a strong team. They got a strong roster. They had a strong showing in Atlanta. I remember last week's podcast. I was down on them. I said this kind of as good as we'll see from them, and they're not gonna hit another level and make some noise in like a finals or anything. And I still feel that way. I still think they're gonna fall short. But there's no reason they shouldn't at least make the top 4 here.
Yeah, the other, like you were saying, the other 3 teams in that group were just facing too many issues, either internally or externally, and so I can't see them giving a challenge to Minnesota at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, one of the teams is garbage, and the other 2 made roster changes, so a lot of uncertainty.
It feels wrong saying a team with TJ, Dashy, Kenny, Slasher, and Jacob, especially after last year, is trash, but it's the fact of the matter at the moment. So
and for LCS, I mean, that's the same thing with CLG.
Yeah,
they were slotted to be in the top 4 playoff contenders this year, and now they're 2-10. So it can happen to the best. So
Pope's bringing it back though, right, guys?
Maybe we'll see.
Group B is kind of weird because on one end, it really feels like the two teams, or Dallas and Atlanta, are just far and away favored, and we'll finally get to see those 2 match up again. Did they match up at opening weekend? I think they did, right?
Yeah, they did, and it was
Not pretty.
Dallas. Yeah, it wasn't pretty, but Dallas was like, well, we're playing the best team, and they just weren't at their peak yet. So yeah, if they can both win the matches that they're favored in, that's going to be a really exciting round 2 matchup.
Yeah, I'm honestly. Did you hear about Pharaoh subbing in for Pristini this weekend?
For Florida?
Yeah, so Pristini, I guess, is benching himself because of mental health issues.
Interesting.
I saw that today and was kind of taken aback, not because of not like trying to like dog Pristini here in any way, right? But like I was just not expecting a COD pro to do that. We were mentioning last week how prideful they can be and how like, nah, I'm okay, I'm the best, I got this, and like he's like, no, I've been an asshole, like I've been. I need to take a step back and get my head straight.
Yeah, and it's especially bizarre because it's after a successful event for them. Like
a
really, really big event for them, as opposed to if the team's struggling and he says, like, I think I'm the issue, play with someone else, let me figure this out. That's one thing. But he's coming off a great event. It was a big showing for him. He was on main stage talking, don't doubt me.
Yeah.
You don't drop me. Here I am, baby. We're going to the finals. Then they get rolled in the finals, but the bigger thing,
hey,
the bigger picture, they got second place, and it definitely is a surprise to me that that happens. But it'll be interesting to see what the soul of that team is like without Pristini. He's in a lot of ways sort of the spiritual leader of that squad, and Pharaoh's a whole different beast. I mean, he's just a different personality.
Oh, did he delete the tweet? Hold on.
Don't exactly see him as a leader. Boy,
he may have deleted the tweet. Oh no, I might be saying something without any.
Jacques.
Well, we'll see what the lineup is when they actually run a lineup out there. They're
he deleted the tweets, but
3 hours ago he said been going through it, trying to be myself again. So
yeah,
he's working. He's trying to get healthy. We always gotta respect a man trying to take that mental health break.
I mean, in general, like there's been a lot more talk about like mental health and sports with like Bell Let's Talk, and then you had DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Love coming out about how
esports as well. It's just the general movement across.
It's really good to see though because
totally agree.
Like I've never. Actually, it's not true. I've had one really bad depressive episode in my life. Not that I really want to turn this into that kind of podcast, but like
okay, we get deep on these UO podcasts.
we have about 25 minutes of audio of us just talking about our relationship problems.
Yeah, all behind the scenes, but it's there somewhere in the files. So.
But yeah, hats off to Pristini for like being able to identify like, hey, I need to stop, or I need to take a break, or I need to relax, because you don't see that often, and it's nice to see. So I hope everything turns out well for him.
We don't know for sure, but I hope Florida also is going there. So let's see.
They're bringing in Faro for him, which is going to be interesting.
The rumor is Faro in for Pristini, and Pristini basically confirmed it by just saying, like, good luck, Faro. Like, it wasn't, there's no, like, official Florida announcement, which, by the way, I got to do a shout out to Florida Mutineers Twitter.
Oh, it's so funny.
Their Twitter account is fantastic. They said, what are 3 emojis that describe your favorite team? And it was like, like their logo stuff, and it was 3 cute emojis. Somebody replied to him with 3 trash cans. Is that?
Yeah.
And then we have It's Okay Optic. You go when you feel like it, which is Patrick.
It's
a SpongeBob episode. We love SpongeBob memes. We'll throw it up on the screen. We'll make sure we get you to see it too. But
that's so good.
Florida Mutineers, great work brand-wise there. They're very active on Twitter.
Creative content teams are honestly the best.
It's easy to be a fan of a team that you just are. They always make you laugh on Twitter, and they're always putting out weird content.
Well, that's how I became a G2 fan for like League. Is G2's content team is absolutely
their social media is
hilarious.
So
they have no problems trash talking anyone that snaps back, but they also make fun of themselves. So it's all fun and games when it comes to that. So always love to see that.
Yeah. So we'll see what's up with Mutineers, whether that team really just takes a step back. Definitely not expected to get to the finals this tournament. That would be another surprise if they did that, but it's a good squad, and honestly it's going to be a tough start for them against Atlanta FaZe. I think they're pretty big underdogs to Atlanta FaZe now, and being the first matchup of an event, there's always that like the team hasn't woken up yet. They're not in championship mode yet, and there's a chance to get them and shock them early. But even if this goes to a Game 5, I think Atlanta FaZe squeezes out the Game 5. It's just whether it's 4 games, 5 games, 3 games.
Has Atlanta played a Game 5? I literally mentioned it 20
minutes
minutes ago.
I think they have.
Yeah,
Somebody pushed them
it was against Rocker. The other kind of, so there's 2 pieces of like news to go through for the rest of this group, but Dallas brought in Rambo. Rambo has been around forever. And so he finally he's coming back to competitive COD in some capacity. He was with Sledgehammer, who's developing for them for 6 years, something like that. And then now he's Dallas's head coach / general manager, and I think that's a really good move for him. And I think it's a really good move for Dallas because Rambo's one of the smartest players in COD history, and so I feel like that's a running joke somewhere, but I feel like it's a good move for them because when you have young players, like Ilian Shotzi, who we've been talking about. Oh, Ilian Shotzi and technically Hugh, but Huke's been around for a while too. Yep. Ilian Shotzi in particular, having a guy like Rambo to, not only be like, hey, this is what you should do from a guy who's been watching and playing competitive COD for going on 10 years now, but as well as like kind of being that voice that Clay and Krim will respect. So I think we could see a very I'm really interested to watch Dallas this weekend. I'm excited to watch the Gorillas roster. I'm excited to see if Optic can get themselves out of this colossal hole they've been in. I'm excited to see how Panda does with Seattle. I'm excited to see if Rocker can keep form. I'm excited to see there's so I was excited for the past 2 events because I was like, oh, it should be pretty exciting. And then this one, I'm really excited because you go down for every team, there's something to watch and something to be intrigued by.
All of these teams have these past histories now that they can either bust out of those expectations. Like the expectations for both LA teams and like the New Yorks to struggle and to still be bad, and then those teams like Dallas Empire where they really got to do well. If they underperform, that's a lot of pressure on them, and that's a lot of memes on Twitter. about them struggling. So it really is a lot to watch, and you get that pecking order starting to establish for who's supposed to be the good teams right now, and that's the beauty of COD is that we're going to start to see that get mixed up. We're going to see some things like maybe FaZe wins again, but underneath
trying to do a power ranking for this is going to be brutal next week.
It's going to be a weird situation. What else was I going to touch on? It was the
the Subliners are rumored to be
the Subliners are the third team that's rumored to make a roster change.
They're bringing in
we don't know. That's a mysterious situation right now because they have Zuma, Temp, Accuracy attached. We know those four are playing. The rumor is that Happy is getting benched for Mac Melts, who it's pretty much almost confirmed that he's joining the team. Whether he stays on the bench for this event or jumps into the lineup this event is not confirmed right now. Even the online roster for them just shows there are 4 players and like an empty 5th spot for whether it's going to be Mac, whether it's going to be Happy. That's still up in the air, but New York, they're in need of a change. We talked about it. They've got good players. They've got good pieces, and I think I said they should drop Happy, honestly.
Probably. I mean,
I don't
you
want to
look at
give
the
myself
roster.
too much credit, but you look at that roster, and that's who you get rid of. And Mac Melts is just one of those AM guys that's it's going nuts. So it's a great move for them, and I'm excited to see if they improve because this is honestly, I mean, not a great chance because it's a brutal bracket for them to try and escape out of. So maybe. I don't know what to do if you're New York Subliners here, but you've genuinely got maybe the hardest group that you'll see all year because they're sitting there as sort of the 4th team out of those 4 teams, and they're not expected to beat Dallas. They're definitely not expected to beat Atlanta. And if they match up against Florida, well, Florida's
even
a
with
better
the
team
change.
right now, even with the roster change, so that's going to be expected to be close as well. So it's a nightmare scenario for them.
It's not looking
try and do well in that group, and so I don't know what they do with the roster change, but I have low expectations for them regardless, and I think maybe it's just a week to try something. Maybe it is just let Mac Melts play with the team, let the other 4 guys just get a full weekend of seeing what kind of teammate he is and how he responds to wins and losses.
Yeah. I mean, on top of that, there's really not much else to talk about, playoffs-wise. I think this is really just phases to lose.
Yeah.
I can't, barring a huge change of form for Dallas, I can't see any of the other 6 teams outside of those 2 challenging FaZe. I think FaZe, like I saw a statistic, right, earlier this week where FaZe loses rotation, or like, no. FaZe wins rotation in the next hardpoint 19% of the time, right?
Yeah.
They're beating teams because they're just flat out better.
That's pretty crazy.
It's like
actually true because they're fundamentally so good that they don't even have to play by the rules of hardpoint to be good at it. Okay.
But then that begs the question, like even as a like
as for my fundamental understanding of hardpoint and the games I've been watching, that's insane.
Well, what's crazy is so many hills in Modern Warfare currently, like, are these these determined like money hills because you can, if you set up correctly and you rotate to them early, you can hold them from anywhere for 30 to 60 seconds, right? And the fact that you were losing rotation, you're only winning rotation 20% of the time, and you're still winning these hard points by upwards of 100 points most of the time, it's insane.
Yeah, that's literally brute forcing your way to victories by just being not just like slightly better than the opponent to like
just be that much
doing
better.
That you have to be just
I'd have to
dominating the opponent.
I might try to find it because I might be referencing it.
I do want to talk about what teams here is the Atlanta Killers because Atlanta totally the favorite to win. They won the last event. There's no major challengers, but eventually somebody's going to get to their level. Eventually somebody's going to. It's not like it's going to be an all-year thing where Atlanta wins every event. They're going to have to lose at some point, and whether it's
Oh, okay. So this is what it is.
You never know sometimes, man.
So far on land, this is from a guy. This is the data analyst for the Subliners. He goes, so far on land, Atlanta has broken 39% of hills in which they've lost rotation. Currently, the league average for breaking a hill is 18%.
Okay, so they're just twice as good
as
everyone else at busting through regardless of if they didn't rotate.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be happening. But as someone who was a huge fan of the Optic Dynasty, and this was the case for them too, right, where they would just, like, they'd play hardpoint, they would, like, get as much time as they could out of a hill, they would let the other team rotate, and then they would just run in, break that hill, and then hold that hill for another 20 to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it feels like this is going to come off as me being a super biased Chicago Huntsman fan, but I feel like at some point the wheels do fall off because you can't maintain winning purely through that.
Oh yeah, and
but they do also have a really good coach and replays.
It's not the wheels falling off, but they're gonna have a bad week where they've finished top 4 and they can't even make a finals, where they lose some tough ones. They're gonna have a bad week. They might even have a bad stretch with 2 or 3 tournaments in a row. That's happens to every team in a full season. When you got to play as many events as they do, you have a lull, and I don't think it's going to be this week for FaZe. I feel pretty confident in them taking the championship here in LA, but if there is a team that is going to be the FaZe, the Giant Slayer, that upsets FaZe for either 1 loss or maybe 2 losses in this tournament, I agree with you. I think it's going to be Dallas. I think Dallas has the most to gain. I think they're already the closest team to Atlanta, and while I expect Minnesota and Florida to take a step back this weekend, the only team that's good enough to beat Atlanta that I think will take a step up is Dallas. So I think Atlanta and Dallas probably winning their first-round matchups in Group B, and I think that round 2 is going to go to a Game 5. It's going to be Dallas's chance, whether they capitalize on it or not, to make some noise and get a big win over FaZe, which even if they did win that one, then, well, they get to the semifinal and FaZe is in the other semifinal anyway, and it's not the end of the world if FaZe loses that game. But I think that's where we might see Atlanta lose, if anywhere, which, they're going to be heavily favored all weekend.
Yeah. Okay, if Atlanta wins, who do you think gets MVP out of that 5?
Oh, you got last week, Celium.
So
I'm just going to say Simp. I feel like
the
it's gonna
memes
be
that have
Simp
come out of
and
that have been
Bezzy.
so good.
Yeah.
Mr. MVP, Simp. But, like, I saw it was like I don't use TikTok that often, but, like, there's just this video of this guy who was like, it's like me when I buy the girl in front of me in line and her boyfriend coffee. Mr. MVP. Simp. It was so good. But, yeah, it's...
Great player names are some of the best things about esports.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The creativity.
The thing is like, before
let's
he popped
in, let's get our favorite names out of all the dudes here.
I'm curious about Drew's take on
this.
I
want to go through this because
you can look at all these. You're the unbiased person. You don't know anything about these dudes' names.
See, what's funny is that some of these names like aren't what they go by. Like you have Kenny going by Quavo and Crim6 going by C6. Like.
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna look at this for like a good 30 seconds, then come up with the top 3.
Good. He's gonna come back to us with the top 3. I'm gonna say.
I still think my all-time favorite is Scumper Jumper, just because it's so goofy.
But out of these dudes, I'm gonna say for me, one of the top 3 is definitely Karma.
Karma's just such a good name.
I love the concept of just like Karma as your tag and your player name.
Dude, Black Ops 2 Karma was like watching the douchey frat bro who's just massive crush your dreams.
Yeah.
But like I love Karma.
Zuma is just like, especially with the Z and the M capitalized.
Yeah.
And it's got this funny like cartoon character feel to it where it's Zuma. It's like a Mario character almost.
Yeah.
Like Zuma. It's just awesome. I love him.
I've also always really liked Priesta for some reason.
Dope name. Priesta's cool. For the 3rd spot for me, it's up in the air I think between Clayster, because I love the fact that he throws stir at the end of the name. Like, it's just funny. It makes me laugh. Octane, because I think that's like a really cool, aggressive kind of name where it's like Octane. Like you can make it sound epic when you're like Octane.
Octane with the
and then Apathy, because it's just such a dumb word. Like apathy means not caring. And
it's aggressively not caring.
Yeah, that's hilarious too. So I don't know what my 3rd spot would be. Maybe Apathy, just because it's such a
can I
bold choice to make that.
I'm gonna give a shout out to God RX, just because. RX is usually associated with like pharmacies. God Pharmacy.
Prescription for God.
God has been prescribed. So I would say at first glance, coming through all of these, my top 3, before I get to the top 3, honorable mention for apathy and accuracy.
Yeah. Which is funny because accuracy, I think at one point like had a statistic where he was the least accurate player in a lobby.
Which is what I was going to ask, because I think it'd be really funny if that was the case. But my top 3 in no particular order would definitely be Karma for 1.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Simp for 2.
Okay, yeah.
And what's the 3rd one? Oh, Shot Z.
Shot Z. Yep, no. Those are good. I feel like COD has always had some of the more interesting like names.
Yeah, they're creative.
Yeah.
They're a creative bunch.
Because like in League, I can't think of a name that's like stood out to me the same way that like a Major
terms of,
Maniac
like,
or
funny?
Simp would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Sneaky.
Yeah, I don't think there are any
yeah.
because the way League is it's more like
Licorice
you
is
wanna be
pretty
cool.
good.
You want to be cool, so
Yeah.
a lot of Korean players will just name themselves English words.
Yeah.
I mean, if they don't understand what they mean, just because they sound cool, which is why you have like
Faker.
no, Fakers isn't one of those cases. I
Oh.
don't remember why Faker is called Faker. There's a
We
reason
need
for
a
it.
Korean League player with the name Apathy.
But like I can't think of a good League one, but like an Overwatch, like Pine, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you have names like that or Bang, right? In like League, like
Yeah.
those names come from just like
Oh, you have also
cool-sounding
like
English
Wolf
words.
and like
Yeah,
Impact.
Yeah,
when
they're
he was
all
there.
cool sounding
Piglet,
English words that are just one word.
Poomandu.
That's where they come from. So
That's not English.
like that's kind of like the League trend. That's why I do appreciate with like COD and CS:GO how they can be a little funny. So I like the creativity to say the least. I don't think there's any. I'm trying to think if there is anyone. Okay,
Oh,
I
there's
talk
a
about-
guy who's not on one of these teams that you would totally appreciate. His name is Kleenex.
okay, that is
It's
good.
spelled
That's
clean and then a capital X.
okay. That's really good. That's really good. The only one I can think of like off the top of my head is Keith on Golden Guardians, just because it's just straight up Keith.
But his name isn't Keith.
No,
His
I
name
know.
is Yuri Jew.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's why it's so great.
It's so good.
MVP Keith. But that's a
No,
story
I
for
love,
another
I
podcast.
love Keith. I love Keith, dude. On top of that, we had, outside of the Los Angeles homestand, the Oregon COD team has had 2 matches since our last podcast.
So the season
Lost
rolls
both
along.
of them.
No, wait.
Yep.
Has it been 3?
But I
Well,
think
because
that
no, they
had
lost. They won the
win
they won the
between
one
two
last Thursday.
losses. Yeah, they had the
I was
loss to
watching one
Grand
last
Canyon.
Thursday.
That was
Yeah.
0-3. Then they faced a team I can't remember that they dominated and got a 3-0.
Oh, gaming at Berkeley.
Shout out to Ram for the
Yeah.
last match, stepping up at like couple clutch moments there. That
Dude,
almost
I-
turned a couple
Almost.
maps.
Shout out
but,
to
It's
our
another
buddy
one of those
Ram.
games where it was a tough sweep, but it was a close sweep where you just
Yeah.
felt like all 3 of those maps they could have turned
I'd
it.
say Search and Destroy was pretty. They got
Search and Destroy was
dominated.
awful, yeah.
Yeah, they got dominated.
Oh,
Search and
against UC
Destroy.
Dallas.
And then Ram had almost like a smoke burglar,
Yeah.
criminal play. He was behind all 5 Dallas players, at one point, and no one knew where he was. But then he gave away his position, so they just
Yeah.
turned and killed him, and he only got like 1 piece. But
I still
he had an opportunity to get all 5 because they had no idea where he was.
the guy. Not that I'm like trying to like start anything, but the guy whose name was Cocaine in the
No,
on
that
the
was
UT
that was
Dallas-
hard for me to watch you try.
Oh
and
my
handle,
God.
So props
trying
to
to
you.
cast
Props
it
to
around
Billy
that is
for doing
so
what he did
hard.
during that
But-
cast.
Shouts out to our buddy Ram for playing. Dude's been doing pretty well.
Yeah, he's been a factor. We all know Ram's a G. He's a smart guy, and
Yeah.
he's got the shots. He's definitely
So-
a worthwhile addition to the squad, and it's exciting to see if this team really improves because we know where they're at. We know how good they are. There's so many teams that they've beaten. They've got I'm looking at it right now, just a mountain of sweeps on their season. Every game they've played this year, except for week 1, they've either gotten swept
Swept or been
swept.
swept,
Like,
or
not a lot
swept
of
is
great
what it is,
matches.
yeah.
for
Well,
us
and
to
even then, they've
cast.
only been swept twice.
Yeah, and then it
they've
was just
had
the
their first
twice.
2 losses in the past 2 weeks.
But
Yeah.
they see they've run into a ceiling where they've seen those teams that are like a whole step above them, and it's the question of whether they can get better to the level where they're competing with those best teams, or if it's just going to be totally flipped. Which one is that?
This is against Baylor.
I mean, that's a team that's 2-13. So
Yeah,
I
but
understand.
I've never seen a team get 50-pointed or 50-point clubbed in a while.
We just saw a 250-36 hardpoint win for Oregon in their match against 2-13 Baylor.
Yeah, this is a while ago, but
Go Ducks.
go Ducks indeed.
Yeah. The CCL's got this weird Wild West landscape where the level of quality among teams varies a lot.
It's just like some teams are great, some teams
You've got
are
some
not
elite
great.
teams, and you've got some teams that I could play on, and that's saying something.
I'm so Texas A&M Maroon has been number 1 in the power rankings for a while, but I'm trying to like go through and see
I mean,
how
it looks
many
like
of
they
these.
haven't lost a map.
Yeah. Ugh. That'd be so stressful as a team. You haven't lost a map. Like
That was what was it? Both back as the league translation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I know about.
was it
That's one thing that Licorice has talked about that he's really like scared and worried about. The fact that they've gone 10-0 so far and haven't lost is it gets worrisome because it's how can you improve?
Yeah.
He's talked about in the past where he's like, I've been considered in 2 weeks into a split the best top laner in the NA, but I don't even really know what I can do to improve and like how to improve, and that's like it makes it feel like it's easy to lose, which is like terrifying and can kind of give you a mental boom. And Double Lift also has talked about that as well before the season started and Team Liquid went to kind of trash.
Yeah, and you can even see
he talked about that where essentially he was like he's like, yeah, no, for a while, and it was essentially just I think it was Jet, one of the casters.
Yeah.
Held a like roundtable discussion with a couple star players from teams as like a preseason release, and it was Aframu, Meteos, Golden Glue, Double Lift, and one other person, I think, or it may have just been the 4 of them. And essentially, one of the starting questions was, "Oh, who do you see is going to be at the top of the split?" And like synonymously, everyone was like, "Team Liquid, no chance," or whatever. And Double Lift talked about, he's like, "Yeah, even at the beginning of this discussion, like you guys talked about that," and that's like, I don't know what to do now because I want to be the underdog. I don't want to be the villain. Like, I can't.
Okay, when you're Double Lift
kind of
and you've won the last 5 splits, because the only split you haven't won was when Wild Turtle was with TSM for a split in 2017. Was it 2017? Yeah, that sounds right. And then before that, you won the last 3 splits. Like I think he has. Does he have?
No, he's been, but I guess to bring it to more of a general and not so much league centric point is there is a real life thing of when you get to a point where you're so good, there is that ceiling that how can you improve when you have no one to compete with, and then you automatically just fall off because of that.
Transitioning off that's what Atlanta FaZe is running into right now, where they aren't maybe playing, they're not growing, they're not getting smarter,
playing smart,
they're not learning the game because it's so easy for them and so effortless that somebody's going to get smarter at the game. Somebody's going to get to a point where they outsmart them, and that's going to be when FaZe gets that wake-up call. They're going to have that loss, and they're going to start going to have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, we're playing this game wrong.
And that's what happened with G2 last year for the league at Worlds is all year they dominated potential for the Grand Slam, and they finally came across the team that they couldn't just brute force beat mechanically and got absolutely destroyed. So definitely something you see across all of esports.
Or in sports too, you had the Warriors when they went 73-9.
Yeah.
This is not the exact same thing, but like they were like, how long can we keep the streak going, and then how high, like how much can we break this record by, and then that ended up biting them in the ass come actual playoffs. But this was actually kind of an interesting thing. I was just looking at the COD Comp subreddit, and this was from Bevels. Bevels was kind enough to wish Optic Gaming good luck with Roster Mania. To him, the brand isn't the same as it used to be, and those negative connotations will always remain. He also pointed out the contradiction of being a dog without bite. I think they like to think of themselves as the league antagonist, but at the end of the day, where's the intrigue in a winless villain?
I mean, they're winless. They're going to be terrible until they're good.
That's like the crappy villain. That's like...
Yeah.
It's like
the boss that... It's the boss that gets flattened in episode 1 of an anime. Because you need to establish the character, so it needs to like destroy someone in the first episode, and that you never see that character again because it's just.
Or like maybe every time they come up, they just get flattened.
It's like Doofenshmirtz and Phineas and Ferb. I'm the most evil person.
Or it's like your rival in like any Pokemon game.
Yeah, that one too. Team Rocket.
Oh my god! Did you guys play Sword and Shield? Like we're getting off topic here, and we'll probably wrap it up here. In a little bit,
I stopped playing. I think after Black and White.
Okay. Sword and Shield are not terrible, but they also have a lot of flaws.
As I have been told, yeah.
But the one thing that has always stuck out to me about that game was your rival is a moron. The entire game, your rival is an idiot. Like. The first time you fight him, you have the ability to use your team or your Pokemon's like stab move, like the same type. I don't remember the thing, but effectively like you do more damage because it's the same type advantage as the one as like your Pokemon. And he's like, type advantages, and I'm like, I've been playing Pokemon since I was 4. Like, you think I don't know type advantages at this point? So
it's the tongue-in-cheek stupidity. But yeah, no, definitely when you get to the point where like you're the bad guy, but
you suck.
Yeah, it's always hysterical.
It's like evil geniuses in League, kind of.
Yeah.
They tried really hard to be the bad guy, and they were terrible for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no,
are they still bad? Or are they 5-7 or 6-6?
They're in the same boat that Misfits and LEC is facing, where like.
Well, Misfits is like still surprising at the top of the standings.
Misfits at the top of the standings, but every single team in the league will agree. And if you go back and watch their games, they're winning games by luck.
Yeah, they're winning games.
They're not winning games by skill or strategy. It's just someone messes up or something just randomly goes in their favor, and then they are able to pull out like a last minute win. So their success is kind of I put an asterisk on it for sure.
All right. I think that'll be it from us for today or tonight.
Yeah, just kind of winding down.
These when it comes to college, I feel like week 8 and week 9 are super draining just for whatever reason.
We're in which one are we?
9. Next week is week 10, and then we have finals week, and then spring break.
It hit me because I'm out all of next week because I'm getting to cover the Pac-12 men's basketball tournament in Vegas.
Have fun with that.
Hopefully Oregon wins at least one game so that it's not just like, I mean, we're covering the other games too, but it would be pretty sad if
Definitely look out for that to watch Michael
DuckTV
here.
Sports, check it out. We'll be tweeting like crazy. We're tweeting like crazy right now for the women's tournament.
Yeah.
My point is that I'm out all of week 10, so like it hit me today.
This is your last week of the term.
I've taken my last class, like my last in-class thing for the whole term. Like I'm done. I just have next week of like working from Vegas and then finals, which I have to take. So I have to come back for finals, which sucks. But like,
I'll be here.
I'm done. I'm done with classes. Yeah.
Oh wait. You want to do the host podcast during finals week?
I'll plug a couple things as you wrap things up here, Billy.
Yeah.
So one, be sure to watch our UO Duck teams, and possibly we want to do like a fun broadcast just for DuckTV,
yeah, I was
as well as our
about
esports
that today.
group.
Having I mean, I was talking to David, who's the esports, UO esports boss.
Such a confusing but lovely man.
Lovely man. He's
great.
We're in a meeting today, and he said it's not the UO Esports Twitch channel, it's the University of Oregon Twitch channel. So literally anything could be streamed on there, and it would make sense under the University of Oregon umbrella.
What if we just started streaming
we've got a
basketball
lot.
games in there? How much trouble would we get in?
That has to do with networks.
Yeah,
So,
that would be questionable.
Yeah.
Although there's no reason we can't go record a media availability and a press conference.
Ooh, and then
on live stream it.
That would be so much fun.
Yeah, so many ideas, but you can find that all at twitch.tv/University of Oregon. We also have, for esports related stuff, a Twitter, UO Esports, and Instagram, UO Esports. Definitely check that out. If you haven't checked out my podcast that I run with Jacob Thompson, it's Intentionally Speaking. Episode 4 and 5 should be up by the end of this week. I finished episode 4 a little late today. I'm going to edit episode 5 tomorrow. I feel like
episode 4 for everybody's been kind of rough.
Yeah, and that's with Billy, who's on our show. Great show. Definitely be sure to check that out at our DuckTV YouTube, which you found this. And also check out Go Goats, the Overwatch League podcast that we do here as well. Past that, definitely had some success. Games coming to the uplook towards this next week and weekend. I think we're doing our first Hearthstone broadcast next week.
Yeah.
Trying.
If we can get enough setup for it. I think we have Overwatch this weekend as well. Past that, for sure, as Billy mentioned, I am planning on doing a finals week just general podcast with hosts from the various podcasts for fun, because not all of us are going to be here, and I don't want to have any pressure on anyone to watch games and that kind of various stuff, especially since I'll be the only one between me and Jacob here for League. So we're going to have some fun with that, tune into that. In regards to general Twitch content, I'm putting this on record because I really want to do it. It'd be really whack but really cool, since I practically live in Allen anyway. You practically live in Allen anyway.
I'm starting to get to the point where I live in Allen.
Yeah, if we did like a 24-hour stream, like with just various events, that'd be kind of really fun.
I will hold down Gwent for 4 hours.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like, I think we all have enough passion and content capabilities to do something like that. So
I'm going to the broadcast room right now. To Gwent.
Yeah, so definitely look at that in the future. Past that, be sure to check out our esports lounge and the EMU.
God,
I don't think I have anything else
I've spent so much time there already.
Yeah, we spent too much time there. Not to perk anyone's ears up, but we may have a CSGO team. Cough, cough. Not really, but a lot of us.
There will be a Valorant team, though.
Yeah, Valorant for sure. And it's right now the grassroots team is what we call Gwent 5, which is me and a couple of other esports broadcast members. That just generally play on the esports lounge on Tuesdays, so be sure to check that out as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys all for listening. It's been a great show. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry I didn't have like extensive bits to contribute to the conversation, but I had a good time. So
watch the tournament this weekend. Give us your thoughts, and then
don't watch Seattle. Watch all the other games.
Good to know.
The more people I can get into COD, the better, because I feel like COD is one of those esports that just gets constantly overlooked, and it's very near and dear to my heart. But thank you guys for all for watching.
Next term, Seattle. They got their homestand next term coming up in April, so we gotta make a trip.
Potentially,
Gotta
if
head up
I
there.
have money.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys all for watching.
like,
We
live
will
at my
be
house.
back next. We'll be back next week. This has been the Round 11 podcast, and I still don't have a proper ending.